One of the hardest things for me to explain in a video is why my whole entire Mormon family would think so badly of me that they would cut me off, disown me, ghost me, and have no contact with me or my children for 6 years. It's hard as a former Mormon to explain to someone who was never Mormon the doctrine and teachings around apostates like myself that make my family think that I literally speak for Satan, that I'm doing Satan's work, that I do not have the Spirit with me, that I am evil, that I lack values, that I don't have morals, that I don't even have a soul, simply because I've lost my faith in the Mormon church and resigned. In Mormonism, apostasy is the greatest sin that you can commit. To have the truth, to have the Spirit testify to you of the gospel, and then to turn your back on it and leave is the worst, most wicked thing that a human being can do. The Mormon prophet very recently has called those who lose their faith lazy learners. He has told members not to take counsel from those who no longer believe. Like, what does that even mean? Like, my dad shouldn't even call me on the phone and be like, hey, Jenny, do you have a dentist you might recommend? Or where should I get my oil changed? Don't take counsel from those who no longer believe. This week, a really popular LDS podcast put out this video, which asks the question, do people who leave the Mormon church still have any morals? They spend a long time dehumanizing and degrading former members like myself, hinting at, well, they would probably commit murder because they lack values, and showing these little charts that are like, people in the church have values way up here, and ex-Mormons, their values, they don't even have any. It's this teeny little line. I want to play for you just a little bit of this video.
Hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Luke Hansen, editor-in-chief of Ward Radio News, as well as via Zoom by Jonah Barnes, the associate professor of all things apocryphal. And today, we are going to be talking about the moral foundation scores of basically Latter-day Saints versus ex-Latter-day Saints. And this article that was written by the Deseret News, applying moral foundations theory to current and former Latter-day Saints. Basically, we're doing a study that had been made by one Jonathan Haidt, who's a favorite scientist or a favorite sociologist of this channel, who sees what happens, I guess, when people lose their faith. And unfortunately for ex-Latter-day Saints, which is the euphemism we're using for angry trolls on ex-Mormon subreddit, unfortunately for people that hate watch us, what did they come up with, Luke? What's the soundbite?
Essentially, they have less morals than Latter-day Saints do. But it's not as bad as it sounds, because they would actually probably be happy in having less morals than we do.
Now, we say less morals, like, do they just not feel bad about killing somebody?
Let's start to break it down. Let's start to break it down. So there's Jonathan Haidt, and he was like,
what do you want to say, but you're euphemizing?
No, I actually do want to actually explain it.
Okay.
The soundbite is they have a skewed moral compass, or that they have less morals than we do, but they would kind of like that, just maybe not the way that we're putting it. So here's how it goes. So Jonathan Haidt, atheistic, secular, but rational professor who studied moral psychology. And
they give the least amount. Yeah. Like, the people that talk the most about care and talk the most about fairness are the ones that don't want to provide it. They don't understand how difficult it is to actually give it.
They want to make you provide.
They want to make you provide it through taxation and through their stupid woke programs that they're exempt from, because I'm depressed. I'm too depressed to give, but damn it, you better. And it's just the most hypocritical garbage argument on the planet. Is this the same people we're talking about?
Sure. Sure. This is just self-reported.
I left the Mormon church really suddenly. And in 2018, when I lost my faith one Sunday and quit the church at age 44, there was no TikTok, there was no social media. I didn't have anyone else that I could turn to for advice on how to gracefully leave the Mormon church and not freak your family out. But because I lived 2,000 miles away from my Mormon mom and some of my siblings, and because I really didn't go to church with any of my family members, I felt like I could keep it really quiet. So my plan was just to pretend that I was still going to church. The only people who were going to know were my bishop and my friends in my ward. And don't ask, don't tell. The first Sunday that we didn't go to church, my mom called my phone asking for a recipe. My phone was sitting in the kitchen. I was in the bathroom getting ready for church. And one of my kids answered the phone. My mom was like, "Oh, I thought you guys would be at church." And one of my kids said, "No, we're not Mormon anymore." We had not been Mormon for exactly 6 days. The child calls for me. I go pick up the phone and my mom is freaking out. "Jenny, what are you talking about?" Every conversation that I would have with my mom for the next several months was focused on the fact that I wasn't going to church. 2 weeks after leaving the Mormon church, my 24-year marriage would collapse. I would become victimized by post-separation abuse. I would become homeless. I would attempt to take my life. I would hit rock bottom depression, lose everything, be sleeping in my car. And the only conversations that I ever had with my mom were about the fact that I wasn't going. One of the very last conversations that I really had with my mom, I was cooking dinner. I had my phone propped up on the counter and we were FaceTiming and I was wearing a tank top and some workout leggings. I had just come home from the gym in my apartment complex. And as I was talking to my mom, I was crying. This was in the middle of all of that horrible stuff. And I told her, "I'm really struggling. I feel terrible. I'm going to lose my home. My day was horrible. All these terrible things that were happening." And my mom kept giving me this weird look. And I remember like looking at my phone on the counter with my mom giving me this face on my FaceTime. And finally I was like, "Are you okay? Why do you have that look on your face?" And my mom began to attack me for my lack of beliefs. She said, "Jenny, every bad thing that's happening in your life is because you've taken off your garments, you've broken your temple covenants, you've denied the gospel and the Savior, and now I'm watching my daughter under the influence of Satan, and it's really hard for a mom to watch." And she wrapped it up with this. She goes, "And what is that tank top?" It was, you guys, it was just a tank top. Like, I don't wear any like crazy stuff. It was a tank top. I had been at the gym. She says, "Is that why I was just on the phone with my granddaughter, your daughter, and she was dressed like a little hoochie mama?" That's the quote. "Because of your bad example, you're a terrible example to your daughters. I can't believe you're wearing that." My mom during this time period began to call uncles, other family members who reached out to me via text and phone to scream at me, to tell me that I was garbage simply because I had lost my faith in a church. The real straw that broke the camel's back was when I took my kids out of the church too. They had no desire to go. They were under the age of 18. I wouldn't have let them continue being Mormons, even had they wanted to until they turned 18, but they also didn't want to go to Mormon church anymore. So I took them out of Scouts and Young Women's and all of the church stuff and withdrew my 14-year-old daughter from seminary. My mom found out about that and she began calling my kids behind my back and saying, "No matter what your crazy mom is doing, you guys keep showing up for seminary, keep going to Scouts, keep your testimony alive." When I reached out to her and said, "Please don't," to encourage my kids to go to church, World War III began in my family. I was essentially the same person that I had been 2 months, 3 months, 6 months before, but I had family members who began expressing to me that I was not the person that they thought I was. One of my uncles told me, "It's like the Jenny that I knew is dead. She no longer exists, and I don't know how to get past the grief of that." The only thing about me that had changed was I just wasn't Mormon anymore. My behaviors didn't radically change. I really didn't start doing anything different. And I was still going to Christian church. The week after Mormonism, I converted to Christianity for 4.5 years. Sure, I drank an occasional coffee. They were out of state. They didn't know about that. And yeah, I was letting my shoulders show. In the 6 years since I left the Mormon church, I have lost hundreds of LDS friends. I have been ghosted, disowned, and in some cases actively told that I was dead to friends and family members and attacked in real life, on social media, and all across the board because I don't go to church. And this began before social media. My TikTok is only 4 years old. Most of the attacks happened prior to me being an and it's not because my mom and my family members are necessarily terrible people. It's because they belong to an organization that teaches that apostates like myself have no values, no morals, that we are probably capable of murder, and that we are the darkest, most evil, satanic human beings walking the earth. So a year ago, May, I got a letter in the mail from my mom. She actually sent it to my uncle because I was renting his guest house. So my uncle got this letter for me. She took the time, my mom took the time to type up a little letter. Dear Jenny, I was going to go to Oregon to visit my dad. I have not seen my father in 6 years. She has cut off all contact with my dad. She has triangulated all of my siblings, nieces, nephews, everybody, every uncle, every person that she can contact. She has made sure that they have cut me off. She tells every human that she can possibly get 2 seconds with that I am a piece of evil garbage. So I've heard you're planning to come to Oregon this summer. Please don't come. I'm sorry you had such a disturbed childhood. In hindsight, you might have been a disturbed child. Your endless social media postings are devastating to me. I won't give you any opportunity to add further inventory to your complaint stockpile for TikTok, whatever. Make it up. It's what you do best anyway. And she tells me at the end, you've pretty much burned your bridges with your family. Hell, you torpedoed them. Have a good life. I have done nothing to burn bridges with my family except for opposing the church that they hold more dear than anything else in their life. I've wondered in the year and a half since receiving this letter in the mail, what it would take for me to cut off one of my children. What it would take for me to write a letter to a child and say, I'm never going to see you again. You don't belong to our family anymore. Honestly, I don't even think that if one of my children Jeffrey Dahmered somebody, that I would just abandon them. By the way, I've reached out to these boys who did this little video and told them how harmful and toxic this rhetoric is and that it has real life consequences in people's lives. And they have harassed and bullied me in their comments and told me that I'm wrong. Triangulation is an incredibly powerful tool. And the multi-$100 billion Mormon church is triangulating family members against their loved ones who are LGBTQ, who are transitioning out of the faith. The Mormon church is destroying family relationships while also claiming to be a church based on family.